Number 8. New Hampshire UFO Sightings. Our first unexplained object sighting involves the legendary and below-the-radar organization Project Blue Book. This top-secret United States Air Force project had its own dramatic TV series recently. It is featured in other shows, books, and documentaries. They looked into strange sightings and phenomena, cataloging, and in some cases, debunking the evidence presented to them by witnesses across America. New Hampshire had its fair share of supposed UFOs, notably back in 1965. In particular, the experiences of 3 men around the town of Kensington, near Exeter, grabbed attention. The first individual was Norman Muscarello, a high school graduate who was about to join the Navy. Traveling on foot along Route 150 in the month of September, he was going from Amesbury, where his girlfriend lived, to his home in Exeter, a distance of 10 miles which Muscarello would hitchhike. It was 2 a.m. and Muscarello reportedly spent most of the journey that night walking due to a lack of traffic. Hitting Kensington, he then observed 5 red lights flashing on and off in the sky. They appeared to be coming from a large hovering object, which seemed to spot Muscarello and fly towards him. After hiding in a ditch, the young man frantically tried to get help before flagging down a car. Muscarello was driven to the local police station where he reported what he'd seen. Earlier, Officer Eugene Bertrand of the local force had been talking to a disturbed lady in her car. She'd claimed to see the red lights as well. Officer Bertrand thought little of it till word came in about Muscarello. He then took the young man to the location where he'd seen the lights. They witnessed a large object rise into the air, accompanied by the now notorious light show. The object moved in a swaying motion, the lights moving from left to right and back again. At one point, Officer Bertrand was going to try and shoot at it. Ultimately, he called for assistance in the shape of Officer David Hunt. He too witnessed the strange sight before this UFO went on its way. Despite explanations from authorities, including that the lights came from an Air Force base, which was clearly not the case, the multiple reports of hovering lights in the area suggested this was something not of our Earth. As for Project Blue Book, they speculated that the sightings were down to a training mission. Fast forward to 2011, and the Skeptical Inquirer published another explanation that the red lights emanated from a Boeing KC-97 Stratofreighter. Not sure we're convinced about that. Number 7. UFOs interrupt football match. We've all seen pitch invasions during a football match, right? Everyone from disgruntled fans to naked streakers. But this story is different because it involves unidentified flying objects. The sighting happened at a stadium in Florence, Italy in 1954, and what's more, took place in front of 10,000 people. During a Fiorentina versus Pistoiese game, objects appeared in the sky over the Stadio Artemi Franchi. These have been described as like eggs, balls, or cigars, so a definitive shape hasn't been established. Also, some say the objects move slow, and others say they were fast. One curious detail is the stuff that came out of the UFOs. Crowds and players saw a white, woolly, sticky material float down. It is often referred to as angel hair and sadly evaporated soon after landing. People have suggested spider webs as an explanation. Come again? Yeah, they claim the angel hair is actually part of a sail-like structure used to transport spiders through the air during a migration. Whatever it was, the material was released all over Tuscany, and there were other sightings of weird objects in the sky. It's reported that some of the angel hair was studied, and the elements don't match up with that of spider webs, which is reassuring. Think we'd prefer it to be aliens rather than creepy crawlies, not gonna lie. Number 6. Scottish UFO attack. This next entry is truly remarkable because it's the first ever case of a UFO sighting that was investigated by the cops. Are we talking some alien hunting branch of the police here? Well, no, not exactly. What actually happened was the poor man who saw the object was, it seems, assaulted in a bizarre incident that took place in the area of Deckman Law in West Lothian County, Scotland. It was serious enough for the case to be treated as assault. The time was 1979. Forester Bob Taylor was out with his dog when he ran into what he described as a dark metallic dome in the air. Surrounded by small propellers, it was apparently over 20 feet and accompanied by a bad smell, which Taylor compared to burning brakes. If this wasn't alarming enough, Taylor said he was then attacked by smaller floating objects, which tried to take him forcibly to the UFO. After passing out, he woke up to find himself with ragged clothing and grazes on his chin and thigh. We're not sure what happened to the dog. Hopefully it was okay. But Taylor went home and reported the dramatic scenario. A return visit to the site by authorities revealed odd markings on the ground. So what went down in this unlikely place? Did Taylor suffer an epileptic fit that caused him to hallucinate? Or a stroke? Could PVC piping used by the waterworks have left the ladder-shaped marks on the ground as has been suggested? Guess we'll never know. Also, we're assuming the assault investigation went nowhere, unless some little green men were taken back to the station, only for the Scottish branch of Men in Black to show up and wipe everyone's memories. If that detail was forgotten, then Bob Taylor's name wasn't. He remains an iconic figure in the field of ufology, albeit an accidental one. Number 5. Robert Matthews. We mentioned before about the Men in Black wiping people's memories. Obviously, that was a joke, but we should maybe be treating the subject of alien-related memory loss more seriously, especially when it's the aliens that are doing the erasing. This is what's believed to have happened to Robert Matthews in 1966. He experienced a well-documented phenomenon called missing time. Back when he was 19 and about to tour with the Air Force as a first-class airman, Matthews was supposed to have been picked up and taken to his base from a bus stop in North Truro, a village in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. He reportedly had a bad feeling that morning, one that wasn't helped by his transport not showing up. After calling the base, he was told to wait a bit longer. Lights in the sky led to Matthews' nervous feelings getting worse and worse. He went to phone the base again, asking where his lift had gotten to. To his surprise, they revealed the truck had reached the bus stop, but they hadn't seen him. Matthews assured them he'd been in position the whole time. However, he got another jolt when looking at his watch. An hour had passed, seemingly in a matter of minutes. He then had to report to his superiors and go over what happened. Talk about an awkward explanation. Naturally, they figured he was jerking them around. Boy, Matthews' career serving his country had gotten off to a weird start, right? Everyone moved on, though he knew something had happened to him during this missing time. He had brief flashbacks to a medical-type environment and being watched by people. At least, he probably figured there were people. Reading a book by Bud Hopkins, the ufologist convinced Matthews that his eerie experiences were valid. Not only did Hopkins write about the idea of missing time, he ran support groups for those affected by it. Matthews went under hypnosis, where he relived the bus stop incident in greater detail. His unlocked mind remembered a ship landing and 3 aliens taking him on board, where he was examined. And there was a further twist. Turns out Matthews had also seen an alien when he was a boy in his bedroom, so it wasn't his first rodeo when it came to close encounters. Whether you believe Matthews' story or not, you must admit it's crazy that so many people have described situations involving time that simply disappears. Number 4. Hogues Object. This looks like an exceptionally pretty object, doesn't it? It's also one of the most mysterious. The unexplained ring galaxy was first spotted by Arthur Hogue, an astronomer, back in 1950. So curious looking was the shape that it was assumed to be a trick of the light by some. Turns out not. This is what the galaxy actually looks like, and it's far more than just a galaxy. The outer ring is a galaxy, the round ball inside is a galaxy, and there's also an extra galaxy between them. Crazy, right? Ring galaxies make up a tiny fraction of overall galaxies seen through telescopes. Not only is Hogues Object rare in terms of these stats, it's also a one-off due to its beautiful and baffling appearance. The outer ring is comprised of blue stars, billions of them. The center is red and dense and made of stars. Maybe we should think of this thing as a donut with the gooey stuff in the center. Okay, that's making me hungry. So best we focus on the galaxy, wouldn't you say? Located 600 million light-years from us and measuring approximately 100,000 light-years in width, Hogues Object has been the subject of theories from experts, even though no one can say with certainty how it came to be. A galactic collision is one idea, with one galaxy crashing into another. Perhaps out of something chaotic emerged something truly special. Still, that's kind of the deal with the whole universe, isn't it? Number 3. What happened to the hills? While we're accustomed to hearing stories of unexplained object sightings, there was a time when such an incident was new and strange to the public. Where did it all begin for accounts of UFO abduction? That would be the case involving the Hills. A couple named Betty and Barney makes us think of the Flintstones, but the details of this story are enough to take anything frivolous off your mind well and truly. Their run-in with a UFO happened in New Hampshire, 1961. They'd been married under a matter of months when they decided to go on a late honeymoon. Seems like they had a pleasant 3-day break before having to drive back to Portsmouth, where Barney worked for the post office and Betty for child welfare services. There was a potential problem in the shape of an oncoming hurricane. However, they drove through the night in order to beat it. That they did, yet they also encountered a storm neither of them could have predicted. Driving in the dark, they became aware of a bright light, which followed them with alarming accuracy through the country road network. After a while, the tension proved too much. Betty checked the light out with her binoculars and saw it was a rotating object. Then, Barney attempted to confront the object with a gun, though fell prey to some kind of mind control from the beings looking out of him from what happened to be a craft. Barney heard a voice, perhaps in his mind. The couple made the probably wise decision to run for it at this point. In a freaky move, their truck began bleeping before the pair lost consciousness. They made it home in the end, only with a reported 35 miles and 2 hours of their lives missing. Betty's dress was torn, and Barney's shoes had been through the wars. Intriguingly, both their watches had stopped. Remember how we mentioned missing time earlier? This was the original, and maybe the best account of such a phenomenon. As well as making headlines, the story featured elements we're now familiar with, including flying discs and gray-colored big-eyed aliens. It took time for the Hills to process what happened, but they recalled being examined on board the ship. They didn't have the honeymoon they expected and were sure it's traumatic, but these two definitely went down in the history books. Number 2. UFO in Antarctica. Is this a UFO poking out from beneath what looks like a rocky outcropping in the frozen wastes of Antarctica? Eagle-eyed internet users certainly seem to think it is. Whatever it is, it's out of place in this landscape, right? The 66-foot wide object was first noticed in 2018 out in the Bunger Hills at Wilkes Island, part of the continent's eastern side. Adding to the intrigue is the supposed saucer's exact location. Speculation must have reached fever pitch with the news that the UFO, or rather, the unidentified sitting object, so USO is more appropriate we'd say, is close to a strange entrance-like structure. This leads into a rock face, suggesting to some that it's the secret gateway to some underground facility. Even more intriguing is that the UFO and the strange entrance have another noteworthy spot between them. Back in the early 1990s, Dale Anderson, an exobiologist working for a joint US-Russian project, was caught up in a blizzard and sought shelter. Slap bang between where the entranceway is and the alleged spaceship. Gives us chills, so to speak. Number 1. Oumuamua. Meet Oumuamua, which translates as Scout in Hawaiian. This is a very special asteroid. What's so cool about it? Well, how about the fact that it's the very first object we know about from another galaxy that's tumbled into ours. Cigar-shaped and constantly spinning, the chunk of rock is our most ancient visitor and was spotted for a total of 11 days at Pan-STARRS. That stands for the Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System on the Big Island. We never got a proper look at it till 2017. Interesting, seeing as it's so old, right? But then, that's the view we get when it comes to the depths of our solar system. When we pick something up with a telescope, it's actually way back in the past. This is to do with the distance light has to travel, but anyway, that topic is probably a whole video in itself, right? As for the size of Oumuamua, well, you may be surprised. It's approximately 330 feet long maximum. That makes it even trickier to keep track of. Just as we're getting to know this relatively little fella, off he went. It was nice meeting you, even if on the whole, you're an unexplained knobbly lump. Thanks for watching. Are there any unexplained object sightings you think should have been included on the list? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and see you soon.